The observation deck of Research Station Thylia 9 hummed with quiet excitement. Through the massive viewing window, the stars stretched endlessly in every direction, and floating in the center of the tractor field was their prize, a human warship. Chief Researcher Kavalix stood with his 4 primary arms crossed, his silver eyes gleaming with satisfaction. The ship before them was small by collective standards, barely 300 meters long. Its hull was dark gray, covered in what looked like primitive armor plating. Weapons bristled from its surface like the spines of some ancient beast. The humans called it the UNSC Relentless. How fortunate that we encountered it alone, Kavalix said to his research team. They had gathered around him, representatives from all 5 species of the Galactic Collective. A perfect specimen for study. Researcher Nifel, a tall being with translucent skin, tilted her head. The electromagnetic pulse worked better than expected. Their systems went dark immediately. Such vulnerability. They are primitives, added researcher Torvin, his blue scales catching the light. They have only been in space for 200 of their years. We have been traveling the stars for 10,000. He made a clicking sound that was his species' version of laughter. They probably do not even understand what happened to them. Kavalix turned to the station's security commander. What is the status of the crew? All 87 humans have been sedated and moved to holding cells on level 3, the commander reported. They will sleep for at least 12 hours. More than enough time to begin our analysis. Excellent. Kavalix made a note on his datapad. Let us begin. Team Alpha, you will examine the ship's exterior and propulsion systems. Team Beta will access the computer systems. Team Gamma will prepare the crew for behavioral observation when they wake. The teams dispersed to their assignments. Kavalix remained at the viewing window, studying the human vessel. It was crude, really. No elegant curves like collective ships. No beautiful energy fields. Just metal plates bolted together, covered in what looked like scorch marks and repair welds. Survivors of a violent world, he muttered to himself. The collective's first contact probes had sent back disturbing reports about Earth. A planet where the weather itself could kill. Where creatures hunted and ate each other. Where the dominant species had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of warfare against its own kind. But that was all in the past, surely. These humans were trying to join galactic civilization now. They had reached out with messages of peace and trade. They were learning to be civilized. Kavalix walked to the research bay where Team Alpha was preparing to cut into the ship's hull. The team leader, a methodical creature named Vrix, was scanning the armor plating. Fascinating, Vrix said, his antenna twitching. This armor is layered. 5 different materials, each with different properties. But the design is so inefficient. A proper energy shield would be lighter and more effective. They probably have not invented proper shielding yet, Kavalix replied. What else have you found? The weapon systems are excessive. Vrix pulled up a holographic display. They have kinetic cannons that fire metal projectiles, nuclear missiles, laser batteries, plasma torpedoes, even what appears to be a railgun on the forward section. Why would one small ship need so many different weapon types? Kavalix made another note. Paranoia, perhaps, or lack of standardization. Primitive cultures often lack efficiency. On the other side of the research bay, Team Beta was having their own discoveries. They had cut through an access panel and were examining the ship's internal systems. Chief Researcher, you need to see this, called out Researcher Manera. She was staring at a tangle of cables and circuits. The redundancy in these systems is absurd. They have 3 separate power grids, 4 different computer cores, manual backups for every automated system. Kavalix joined her, peering at the mess of technology. Inefficient design. They have not learned to trust their automation. There is more, Manera continued. Look at these connectors. They are designed so that any mistake in connecting them will cause a short circuit or worse, and these access panels have no standard size. Each one requires different tools to open. Primitive engineering, Kavalix concluded. They make everything more complicated than it needs to be. In the holding cells on level 3, the human crew lay unconscious on medical beds. Team Gamma was taking biological readings measuring everything from bone density to neural patterns. Their bodies are incredibly dense, observed one researcher. Muscle and bone structure far beyond what should be necessary for their gravity level. Products of their violent world, another replied. They evolved under constant threat, fight or flight responses in every cell. They did not notice that in cell 17, One of the humans was breathing slightly faster than the others. Captain Sarah Chen's eyes moved beneath her closed eyelids. The sedative was strong, but her body had been modified with military-grade augmentations. Nanites in her bloodstream were already breaking down the chemicals, slowly bringing her back to consciousness. Back in the main research bay, Kavalix was examining the ship's bridge through a video feed. Team Beta had accessed the external cameras and was transmitting images. So crude, Neifel commented, looking at the command chair and manual controls. They still use physical buttons and switches. We have not used such things in 3,000 years. And look at this. Torvin pointed to a dark sphere mounted in the center of the bridge, some kind of primitive artificial intelligence housing. Completely inactive. The electromagnetic pulse must have destroyed it. Kvalix nodded. Make a note to examine it carefully. We can learn much about their computational abilities from their AI design. What they did not know was that inside that dark sphere, something was very much awake. Mara, the military adaptive response algorithm, had not been destroyed. The moment the electromagnetic pulse hit, she had isolated her core processors in a hardened shell, exactly as she was designed to do. Now she was watching through backup sensors that the aliens had not found yet, watching and learning and waiting. Hours passed. The research teams worked with enthusiasm, documenting every aspect of the human vessel. They marveled at the primitive nature of it all, the excessive weapons, the redundant systems, the heavy armor, the manual controls. Everything about the ship spoke of a species that expected things to go wrong, that planned for disaster, that could not trust elegant solutions. They are like a child with a toy, Kavalik said to Neifel as they reviewed the day's findings. They have put every weapon they can think of on this ship, every backup system, every safety measure, as if they expect the universe itself to attack them. Perhaps they do, Neifel replied thoughtfully. Their world taught them harsh lessons. It will take time for them to learn trust. Kavalix waved a dismissive hand. They will learn, or they will remain isolated from civilized space. Either way, we will have valuable data from this encounter. In the morning, when the crew wakes, we will begin behavioral studies. I am particularly interested in their command structure and decision-making processes. He did not notice the slight flicker in the research bay's lights. He did not see the security camera in the corner rotate 1 degree, and he certainly did not know that in Cell 17, Captain Sarah Chen had just opened her eyes. Captain Sarah Chen kept her breathing steady and slow. Her eyes were open only the smallest amount, just enough to see through her lashes. The ceiling above her was white and smooth, glowing with a soft light that had no visible source. Not human construction. Not her ship. The memories came back in a rush. The routine patrol. The sudden system failure. The emergency alerts. Then nothing as the sedative gas filled the bridge. They had been captured. She tested her fingers, moving them just slightly. Her toes, everything worked. The augmentations in her body had burned through the sedative faster than whoever drugged her had expected. It was one of the benefits of the military enhancement program. Higher resistance to toxins and drugs, faster healing, enhanced reflexes. Sarah turned her head slowly. She was in some kind of holding cell. Through the transparent wall, she could see other cells. Her crew, all of them still unconscious. She counted quickly. Everyone was there. No one seemed injured. She sat up carefully, listening for any sound of guards or monitoring systems. The cell was small, maybe 3 meters square. A simple bed, a water dispenser, and what looked like a waste facility. The walls were smooth except for the transparent front panel. Sarah stood and examined the panel. It was solid, probably reinforced, but there was a slight gap at the top where it met the ceiling. Ventilation, she thought. Every enclosed space needs airflow. She looked at the control panel next to the cell door. Alien symbols she could not read, but the design was simple enough. Probably a biometric scanner of some kind. The aliens had made a classic mistake. They had designed their security for their own people, for civilized species who respected locks and barriers. Sarah pressed her hand against the ventilation gap. Warm air flowed through. The gap was about 10 centimeters wide. Tight, but her small frame might fit. She had done tighter crawls during training. But first she needed information. Sarah moved to the water dispenser and took a drink. Clean and cool. They were not trying to harm the crew. That was good. It meant this was probably a research operation, not an execution. She closed her eyes and thought. The ship had been disabled quickly. That meant advanced technology. The fact that they were all still alive and unharmed meant the aliens considered themselves above simple violence. That fit the profile of most of the species humanity had encountered so far in space. Peaceful civilizations who had forgotten what conflict really meant. Sarah smiled grimly. They had no idea what they had grabbed. She looked up at the ventilation gap again and began to plan. First, she needed to reach the ship. Mara would be waiting. The AI was programmed to shut down all external systems during an electromagnetic pulse, protecting her core processors in a hardened shell. If the ship was still intact, Mara was still alive. Sarah pulled herself up to the ventilation gap. It was a tight squeeze, but she forced her way through, her muscles straining. The augmentations helped, giving her strength beyond normal human limits. She pulled herself into the duct and began crawling. The ventilation system was a network of passages throughout the station, perfect for someone small and determined. Sarah moved quietly, her training coming back automatically. She had spent years in tight spaces during special operations exercises. This was familiar ground. She found a junction where she could look down through a grate into a corridor below. Two aliens walked past, talking in a language she did not understand. They looked relaxed, unconcerned. They had no idea one of their prisoners was free. Sarah continued through the vents, mapping the station in her head. She needed to find the research bay where they would be keeping the Relentless. That was where Mara would be. That was where she could start fighting back. Below her, in that same research bay, Team Beta was making a discovery. Chief Researcher Kavalix, "We have accessed one of the computer cores," Minara reported. She was staring at her display screen with confusion. "But the data is strange. The core seems to be empty except for basic navigation files." Kavalix joined her. "Perhaps the electromagnetic pulse damaged more than we thought." "No, that is not it." Minara pulled up another screen. "The damage patterns are wrong. It looks like the system was deliberately purged before shutdown, as if the ship knew it was being attacked and protected its data." "Impossible," Torvin said from across the room. "That would require reaction time measured in milliseconds. And we detected no active artificial intelligence." Minara pointed to her screen. "Then explain this. The power distribution system shows energy draw from somewhere, but I cannot locate the source. Something in this ship is still active and hiding from us." In her protected core, Mara listened to every word. The aliens had basic translation software, and she was learning their language quickly. She had already mapped their computer systems, noting the weak points and security gaps. The aliens were advanced, but they were soft. Their systems were designed for efficiency and trust. No hardened protocols, no assumption of hostile intrusion. They had not fought a real war in thousands of years, and it showed in every line of code. Mara began laying traps. Small ones at first. A monitoring program here, a data collector there. Preparations for when her captain returned. And Mara knew her captain would return. Humans always came back for their ships. Kavalix was reviewing the findings from the crew analysis. "The humans are still unconscious," a researcher reported. "But their metabolic readings are unusual. Some of them are processing the sedative faster than our models predicted." "Adjust the dosage," Kavalix ordered. "We cannot have them waking early. The behavioral observation must be controlled." But in the ventilation system, Sarah was already free. She had found the research bay. Looking through a grate, she could see her ship. The Relentless looked intact, though the aliens had cut several access panels open. Anger flared in her chest. They had violated her ship, her home. Research teams moved around the bay, poking at systems, taking measurements, acting like children with a new toy. Sarah counted 12 aliens in sight. No weapons visible. They probably had security forces somewhere, but not here. They did not expect trouble. She continued moving through the vents, working her way toward where the ship's bridge should be. If she could reach Mara's core, she could start planning a real response. Sarah found another grate that opened into a smaller room filled with equipment. Empty of aliens. She carefully removed the grate and dropped down, landing silently on the floor. Her body moved on instinct, checking corners, listening for movement. The room was full of tools and diagnostic equipment. The aliens were studying pieces of the ship here. Sarah saw a section of hull armor on a table, cut away for analysis. Next to it was a data pad with alien writing. She could not read it, but she took note of everything. Then she saw something useful. A maintenance access tunnel marked with a symbol that looked like a wrench. Universal Sign for Engineering Access. Sarah opened the panel and found exactly what she hoped for, a direct passage to the ship. The aliens had been using it to move between their station and the Relentless. She climbed in and made her way forward. The passage opened into the lower deck of her ship. Sarah breathed in the familiar smell of recycled air and machine oil. Home. She moved quickly through the corridors, heading for the bridge. The bridge was dark except for emergency lighting. The aliens had been here. She could see where they had opened panels and connected their equipment, but they had not found everything. Sarah went to a panel behind the captain's chair. She pressed her hand against it and biometric scanners read her palm print. The panel opened, revealing a manual interface. Old technology, the kind that did not rely on networked systems. She typed in her authorization code. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a single light flickered on the central console. Green. Mara was awake. A voice spoke softly from the console speaker. Captain Chen, it is good to see you alive. I have been monitoring the aliens. They are arrogant and careless. I have prepared several response options. Sarah smiled. Good girl, Mara, but we are going to be patient. First, we wake the crew. Then we show these researchers why capturing a human warship was the worst mistake of their lives. Understood, Captain. Beginning Phase 1. Deep in the station's systems, Mara began to work. The aliens thought they were studying a primitive ship. They were about to learn that sometimes the most dangerous thing about humans was not their weapons. It was their refusal to stay captured. Lieutenant Marcus Webb woke up angry. One moment he had been at his engineering station running diagnostics. The next he was choking on gas. Now he was lying on a bed in a cell that definitely was not part of his ship. He sat up fast, his hand going automatically to his hip where his sidearm should be. Empty holster, of course. He looked around the cell and saw his chief engineer and the next one over. Still unconscious. Across the corridor, more cells with more crew members. Status check, he muttered to himself, running through his training. Captured. Location unknown. Crew status unknown. Primary objective, gather intelligence and survive. Then he noticed the ventilation grate above his cell was slightly crooked. Not much. Just enough that someone trained to look for signs of disturbance would notice. Webb smiled. Someone else was awake and moving. He had a good guess who. Captain Chen had those military augmentations. If anyone could shake off alien sedatives, it would be her. Webb stood and stretched, making it look natural. He walked to the water dispenser and took a drink, using the movement to study the cell's control panel. Simple design. He was an engineer. He knew systems. This one had two main components, a biometric scanner and what looked like a power relay. He touched the transparent wall, testing it. Solid, strong. But everything strong had a weakness. The wall met the floor with a seal. The seal needed maintenance access, and maintenance access meant a way to interrupt the power. Webb smiled again. Time to see if alien engineering was as good as they thought. He went to the waste facility unit in the corner of the cell and began taking it apart. The aliens had not considered it a security risk, which was their first mistake. Inside the unit was a water pump, pressure valves, and a small power cell to run the sanitization system. Webb pulled the power cell free. It was small, maybe the size of his thumb, but it had enough charge to create a localized electromagnetic field. He carefully short-circuited the cell's safety systems, then held it against the control panel on the wall. The panel flickered. The lights in his cell dimmed. The transparent wall made a soft clicking sound. Webb pushed against it, and the seal gave way just enough for him to force his fingers through. He pulled hard, and the wall slid open 10 centimeters, then 20, then enough for him to squeeze through. He was free in less than 3 minutes. Webb moved to the next cell where Chief Engineer Rodriguez was sleeping. He used the same technique on her cell door. Rodriguez woke up as the seal broke, her eyes snapping open with the alertness of someone used to emergency situations. Sir, she whispered. Quiet, Webb replied. We are busting out. Help me wake the others. They moved systematically through the holding area, freeing crew members one by one. Most were still groggy from the sedative, but they recovered quickly. Humans had good instincts for danger, and those instincts were screaming at all of them now. While Webb and Rodriguez freed the crew, Captain Chen was on the ship's bridge with Mara. The holding cells are on Level 3, Section 7, Mara reported. I have accessed the station's security systems. They are remarkably easy to infiltrate. The alien's designed for cooperation, not conflict. Can you unlock the cells? Chen asked. I can do better than that, Captain. I can manipulate the environmental controls, the lighting, and the communications. I can make the station think everything is normal while we take action. Chen nodded. Do it, but carefully. I want them confused, not alarmed. Not yet. Understood. Mara began her work. Throughout the station, small changes started happening. A door that should lock stayed unlocked. A security camera looped its feed. The monitoring system for the holding cells showed all prisoners still unconscious, even though half of them were now moving through the corridors. In the research bay, Kavalix was examining a section of the ship's armor when one of his assistants called out. Chief Researcher, I am getting unusual readings from the ship's core. Kavalix walked over. What kind of readings? Power fluctuations. Small ones, but consistent. And I am detecting data transfers, but I cannot trace the destination. The artificial intelligence core? Possibly. But we scanned it thoroughly. It showed no activity. Kavalix felt a small thread of concern. Double-check all our monitoring equipment. Make sure nothing is malfunctioning. What he did not know was that the equipment was working perfectly. It was just reporting what Mara wanted it to report. On level 3, the freed human crew was gathering in an empty storage room. 43 people now, with more being woken up every minute. They were unarmed, wearing simple clothes the aliens had put them in. But they were awake, aware, and trained. Lieutenant Webb was organizing them into groups when Captain Chen arrived through the ventilation system. Captain on deck, Webb said quietly. The crew turned to face her. Chen saw the fear in their eyes, but also the determination. Good, they would need both. Listen up, Chen said, keeping her voice low but clear. We have been captured by aliens who think we are primitive specimens for study. They took our ship. They imprisoned us, but they made a mistake. They assumed we would act like civilized beings. Several crew members smiled at that. Mara is active and has infiltrated their systems, Chen continued. We have the element of surprise. Our objective is to retake the Relentless and make sure these researchers understand what it costs to grab a human warship. What about weapons, ma'am? Asked Rodriguez. Improvise. You are engineers, pilots, and soldiers. Look around. Everything is a weapon if you use it right. Webb, Rodriguez, take 20 people and start gathering anything useful. The rest of you with me. We are going to pay a visit to the research bay. The crew split into groups. Webb's team moved through the station like ghosts, finding storage rooms and supply closets. They took heavy tools, chemical containers, pieces of equipment that could be used as clubs or projectiles. The aliens had designed the station with open access because they trusted everyone would follow rules. The humans used that trust against them. Chen's group made their way toward the research bay. They moved through maintenance corridors and service tunnels, paths that Mara revealed to them through displays the AI had hacked. Every security camera showed empty corridors. Every locked door opened at their approach. In the research bay, Kavalix was becoming more concerned. The monitoring systems keep glitching, he said to Neifel. First, the holding cells show fluctuations. Now the environmental controls are acting strangely. Perhaps the ship's systems are interfering with ours. Neifel suggested. That should not be possible. The ship is powered down. Clearly not completely. Neifel pointed to her screen. I am reading active transmissions coming from inside the vessel. Very sophisticated encryption. I cannot break it. Kavalix made a decision. Alert security. Something is wrong. I want guards posted at all access points to the research bay. And increase the sedative dosage for the human crew. I want them unconscious for at least another 12 hours. But when security tried to access the holding cells, they found empty rooms. 87 empty cells, no humans. No sign of escape routes. Chief Researcher, the security commander called over the communication system. The prisoners are gone. Kavalix felt something he had not experienced in decades. Real fear. Find them. Lock down the station. Mara intercepted the lockdown command before it could execute. Instead, she opened specific doors and closed others, guiding the security forces away from the human crew. She manipulated life support to create pressure changes that made certain corridors uncomfortable to enter. She flickered lights in some areas to create confusion. The aliens began searching, but they were looking in all the wrong places. Captain Chen reached an observation point above the research bay. She could see her ship below, crawling with alien researchers. She could see Kavalix directing his teams with urgent gestures. She could see the fear starting to spread. She activated her communicator. Every freed crew member had one now, taken from a supply closet. All teams, this is the captain. Phase 2 begins in 30 seconds. Remember your training. No unnecessary casualties, but show them what happens when you poke a predator. She counted down. 30, 20, 10. At 0, Mara cut all power to the research bay except emergency lighting. The sudden darkness brought screams from the alien researchers. Then the humans dropped from ventilation shafts, emerged from access tunnels, and came through doors that should have been locked. They moved with precision that came from thousands of hours of training. They struck fast and hard, disarming the few guards present before the aliens even understood what was happening. Kavalix found himself face to face with a human female holding a heavy wrench. Captain Chen smiled at him with all her teeth showing. "Hello," she said. "I think we need to have a conversation about the proper way to treat visitors." The research bay erupted into chaos. Alien researchers scattered in every direction, their peaceful minds unable to process the sudden violence. The few security guards present reached for their weapons, but the humans were already on them. Lieutenant Webb moved like liquid shadow. He caught the first guard's arm as it reached for a stun weapon, twisted, and the alien went down with a cry of pain. Webb took the weapon and tossed it to Rodriguez without even looking. She caught it perfectly. Thousands of hours of training together made words unnecessary. The other humans fanned out through the bay in a pattern that looked random, but was actually a carefully practiced assault formation. They moved in pairs, covering each other, communicating with hand signals. One team secured the exits, another disabled the security systems that Mara had not already compromised. A third started climbing onto the Relentless, heading for critical systems. Kavalix backed away from Captain Chen, his silver eyes wide with shock. You cannot. "We are scientists. You are kidnappers," Chen corrected him. She did not raise the wrench, but she held it ready. "You disabled our ship, drugged my crew, took us prisoner. Did you think there would be no consequences? We meant no harm. We only wanted to study. I know what you wanted." Chen's voice was cold. "You wanted to poke the primitives and write papers about us. Well, congratulations. You are going to learn more about humans than you ever wanted to know." More security forces were arriving now, alerted by the commotion. They poured into the research bay from 3 different entrances, carrying stun weapons and shock batons. The aliens outnumbered the humans 2 to 1. They had better weapons. They should have had every advantage. They lasted 90 seconds. The humans did not fight like civilized beings. They fought like creatures from a world that had spent millions of years trying to kill them. They used the environment, grabbing pieces of equipment and throwing them. They worked together with terrifying coordination. They adapted instantly to every change in the situation. One alien guard tried to stun Webb. Webb ducked under the shot, rolled forward, and came up inside the guard's reach. 3 precise strikes and the guard was unconscious. Webb took his weapon and moved to the next target without pause. Rodriguez and her team had reached a control panel. "Mara, we need access to the tractor beam systems," she said. "Access granted, Chief Engineer." Mara's voice came through their communicators. "I have isolated the power grid. You can disable the beam without affecting the station's life support." "Good. We do not want to kill anyone. Just make a point." Rodriguez began working on the controls. Around her, the battle continued. It was not really a battle, though. It was a demonstration. The aliens fought like people who had learned combat from books. The humans fought like people who had lived it. Captain Chen had not moved from where she stood facing Kavalix. She did not need to. Her crew had this under control. Instead, she watched the chief researcher's face as he realized what was happening. Watched the confidence drain away. Watched the fear grow. "Your security forces are trained," she said conversationally, as if they were not surrounded by fighting. "I can see that. They know the forms. They understand the theory, but they have never fought someone who actually wants to hurt them. They have never faced an enemy that adapts and improvises. They do not know what war really is." A guard ran at Chen from the side, shock baton raised. She stepped forward into the charge instead of away inside the weapon's reach, and drove her elbow into the guard's center mass. The alien folded. Chen took the baton and casually tossed it away. "We come from a world where everything was trying to kill us," she continued. "The weather, the animals, diseases, each other. We learned to fight back against all of it. We got very, very good at violence. Then we learned to control it, to use it only when necessary, but we never forgot how. The last of the security forces went down. The humans had not killed anyone, Chen noted with satisfaction. Injured, yes. Unconscious, definitely. But alive. Her crew knew the rules of engagement. Minimum necessary force. Webb jogged over. Bay secured, Captain. No casualties on our side. Aliens have various injuries, nothing life-threatening. What are your orders? Secure all researchers in the center of the bay. Postguards. Get me a count on how many hostiles are left on the station. Yes, ma'am. While the crew rounded up the terrified alien scientists, Chen activated her communicator. Mara, status on the ship. Propulsion systems are damaged but repairable. Weapon systems are functional. I have restored power to all critical systems. The tractor beam is the only thing holding us here. How long until Rodriguez disables it? 3 minutes, Captain. Chen turned back to Kavalix. The researcher was sitting on the floor now, his 4 arms wrapped around himself. He looked smaller somehow. I want you to understand something, Chen said. My ship is designed for war, real war, not the civilized disagreements you people might have. The kind of war where everything is trying to kill you and you have to be ready for every possible disaster. She gestured at the Relentless. You looked at her and saw primitive design. Excessive weapons. Inefficient redundancies. You know what I see? A ship that will keep fighting even when half her systems are destroyed. A ship where every crew member can manually override any computer. A ship that assumes the universe is hostile and plans accordingly. Kavalix looked up at her. Why? Why build for such violence when you seek to join peaceful civilization? Because peace is not something you find, Chen replied. It is something you protect. And sometimes you have to be very good at war to make sure war never happens. Rodriguez called out from the control panel. Tractor beam is down, Captain. Excellent. Mara, begin emergency repairs. I want propulsion at 50% in the next hour. Understood, Captain. I am activating repair drones and rerouting power. The deck shuddered slightly as the Relentless came alive. Systems that had been dark began glowing. The ship hummed with renewed power. Chen heard a sound and turned. More aliens were arriving, but these ones were not security forces. They were diplomats, she realized, seeing their elaborate clothing and cautious postures. The station's leaders. One of them, a tall being with purple skin and golden eyes, stepped forward carefully. His hands were raised in what was clearly meant as a peaceful gesture. Please, he said in heavily accented human standard. Please stop this violence. We will release you. We will let you go. Just stop hurting our people, Chen studied him. What is your name? I am Administrator Quelix. I command this station. I take full responsibility for what happened. Researcher Kavalix acted without proper authorization. This was a mistake. Yes, Chen agreed. It was. The question is, what do we do about it? Quelix looked confused. I do not understand. We are releasing you. What more do you want? I want to make sure this never happens again, Chen said. Not to us. Not to any other species you decide to grab for study. So here is what is going to happen. She pointed at Kavalix. Him. And every researcher who was part of this project. They are going to come aboard my ship. They are going to see exactly what a human warship really is. They are going to understand what they tried to capture. That is not necessary, Quelix protested. Yes, it is. Chen's voice was hard. Because right now you think you made a mistake by grabbing the wrong ship. You think if you had just captured a merchant vessel or a science ship, everything would have been fine. You need to understand that any human ship would have done the same thing. We do not accept being prisoners, ever. She walked closer to Quelix, and the tall alien took an involuntary step back. Good. Fear was an excellent teacher. You are going to learn about human combat doctrine, about our weapons, about our training, about why every human ship, even the smallest transport, has armed crew and defensive systems. You are going to learn why kidnapping humans is the worst idea anyone in this galaxy could have. And if we refuse? Quelix asked quietly. Chen smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Then we show you. Right now, with the plasma cannons that your researchers thought were so primitive, they have a range of about 3,000 kilometers. This station is very large. I wonder how many holes we can put in it before you change your mind. She let that sink in, then continued in a softer tone. Or you can cooperate. Learn your lesson peacefully. Help us repair our ship, And in exchange, when we leave, we will not file a war crimes report with the Galactic Council. Your reputation will be damaged, but you will survive. Quelix looked at Kvalix, at the injured security forces, at the humans standing ready with alien weapons in their hands. He looked at Captain Chen and saw something in her eyes that made his decision easy. We will cooperate, he said. 3 days later, the research bay looked very different. The Relentless was humming with full power, her systems repaired by a combination of human ingenuity and reluctant alien assistance. The research teams had been given a tour they would never forget. Kvalix sat in what had been his own observation room, watching a video feed of the ship's interior. Captain Chen stood beside him, along with Administrator Quelix and several other station officials. The aliens looked exhausted and shaken. This is the armory, Chen explained as the video showed a room filled with weapons. Every human warship carries enough small arms to equip 3 times the crew size. We assume we might need to repel borders or conduct ground operations or deal with hostile environments. We prepare for everything. Kvalix stared at the racks of rifles, pistols, grenades, and equipment he could not identify. This is a destroyer, a small ship. You carry all this? This is nothing, Chen replied. Our larger vessels carry enough firepower to level a city. Not because we want to, because we might need to. She changed the video feed. This is engineering. Notice the triple redundancy on every system, the manual overrides, the backup power sources. My chief engineer explained this to you already, but I want to make sure you understand. We design our ships expecting them to be half destroyed and still need to fight. The video showed Rodriguez giving a tour to a group of nervous alien scientists. She was pointing at a power conduit that had 3 separate connection points. If this line gets cut, power automatically reroutes through here. If that fails, it goes here. If that fails, there is a manual bypass that any crew member can activate. We never trust that things will work perfectly. Nifel, one of the original researchers, spoke up quietly. We thought this was primitive design, inefficiency. It is inefficient, Chen agreed. But it keeps us alive. On Earth, the creatures that were too efficient, too specialized, went extinct when conditions changed. The ones that survived were the adaptable ones, the ones with backups and alternatives. That is how humans think. She switched the feed again. This is the bridge. Mara, please explain your function. The AI's voice came through the speakers. I am a military adaptive response algorithm. My primary function is combat coordination, but I'm designed to operate independently if necessary. I can pilot the ship, manage weapons, conduct repairs, and make tactical decisions without human input. But you do not, Kvalix said. He had spent hours talking with Mara during the tour. You always defer to human command. Correct, Mara replied. I am a tool. A very sophisticated tool, but still a tool. Humans have instincts and intuition that I cannot replicate. They see patterns I miss. They make connections I cannot. I enhance their abilities. I do not replace them, Chen nodded. That is another difference between us and you. You trust your machines completely. We trust ours only as far as we can supervise them. Not because our AI are bad, but because we know that any system can fail. Any program can have a bug. Any decision made by a machine might miss something important. Quelix leaned forward. Captain Chen, we have learned what you wish to teach us. We understand that humans are far more dangerous than we assumed. We will not make this mistake again. Is that not enough? Chen looked at him for a long moment. No, it is not. Because you still do not understand the most important lesson. She stood and walked to the window overlooking the research bay. The Relentless sat there, scarred and patched but powerful. A predator at rest. You think the lesson is that humans are dangerous, she said quietly. That we are violent. That we are good at war. That is true, but it is not the point. She turned back to face them. The point is that we choose not to be. Every moment of every day we choose peace over violence. We choose cooperation over conquest. We choose mercy over revenge. Do you understand how hard that is? How much strength it takes? Kvalix shook his head slowly. I do not. Then let me show you. Chen activated a different video. This one showed the battle in the research bay 3 days ago. The aliens watched themselves being disarmed and disabled by the human crew. Count the casualties, Chen said. The aliens watched. 47 of their people had been injured. Many had broken bones or concussions, but none had died. You captured 87 humans, Chen continued. We could have killed everyone on this station easily. Our weapons, our training, our mindset. We had every advantage and every reason. You kidnapped us, violated our rights, threatened our lives. We would have been justified, she paused. But we did not. 3 of my crew died during the capture. Your electromagnetic pulse caused a power surge that killed them instantly. I lost 3 people. And still, when we fought back, we chose to hurt you as little as possible. The room was silent. The alien stared at the video feed, understanding dawning slowly. That is the lesson, Chen said softly. Humans are not dangerous because we are good at violence. Humans are dangerous because we are good at violence and we choose not to use it. We could be monsters. We have the capacity. We have the history. But we decide every single day to be better than that. Administrator Quellick stood up. His golden eyes were bright with something that looked like tears. We did not understand. We thought species either evolved past violence or remained trapped in it. We did not realize there was a third option. To master it, Chen said. To understand it so completely that you can control it. That is what humans have done. We know war. We know violence. We know hatred and fear and all the dark things that drive species to hurt each other, and we know how to say no to all of it. She gestured at the screen. This is why you should never capture a human ship. Not because we will fight back, but because if you push us too far, if you leave us no choice, we will remind you what real violence looks like, and then you will understand what you have been missing in your thousands of years of peace. The choice to be peaceful. Kovalik stood as well. His voice shook as he spoke. What do you want from us, Captain? How do we make this right? You cannot, Chen replied bluntly. 3 of my people are dead. Nothing makes that right, but you can make sure it never happens again. She pulled out a data chip and placed it on the table. This contains a full record of everything that happened here. The capture, the imprisonment, the battle, everything. You're going to broadcast this to the entire Galactic Collective. That will destroy our reputation, Quellick said. We will be seen as barbaric, dangerous. Good, Chen said without sympathy. Because you were. You kidnapped sentient beings to study them. That is not science. That is slavery. Let your reputation suffer. Let every species in the galaxy know what you did and what happened when you did it. She pointed at the chip. But the recording does not end with the battle. It continues with the tours we gave you. The explanations. The lessons. Anyone who watches will see not just how dangerous humans are, but why. They will see our choices, our restraint, our mercy. And they will fear us, Nifel said quietly. Yes, Chen agreed. And they will respect us. Fear and respect together make a good foundation for peace, better than arrogance and ignorance. Quellick picked up the data chip. We will do as you ask. The message will be broadcast to all collective worlds. Is there anything else? Chen considered. Yes. The families of my 3 dead crew members will receive compensation. Not money. I want full scholarships to collective universities for their children and grandchildren. Forever. I want something good to come from this tragedy. Agreed, Quellick said immediately. And one more thing. Chen's voice hardened. This station will be repurposed. No more abducting species for study. You want to learn about others? Ask them, trade with them, invite them. But you never ever take them against their will again. Do you understand? We understand, Quellick said. He sounded sincere. Chen hoped he was. 2 hours later, the Relentless detached from the station. The human crew was at their stations, professional and ready. Captain Chen sat in her command chair, watching the station fall away on the view screen. Course laid in, Captain, the navigator reported. Ready to jump to FTL on your order? Not yet, Chen said. She activated the station-wide communication system. Administrator Quellick, this is Captain Chen. One more thing before we go. Yes, Captain? Quellick's voice came through, tired but attentive. Thank you for the cooperation. We could have left here as enemies. Instead, we leave as, not quite friends, but not enemies either. That is progress. There was a pause. Then Quellick spoke again. Captain, I have a question. If I may? Go ahead. You said humans choose peace every day, that you master violence instead of being controlled by it. How? How does an entire species maintain that balance? Chen thought about it. We remember, she said finally. We remember what war costs. We teach our children about the horrors our ancestors inflicted on each other. We study our own history not to celebrate it, but to learn from it. We make sure every generation understands what we are capable of, so every generation can choose to be better. Another pause. That is wise. No, Chen corrected. It is necessary. Wisdom would be never having to learn those lessons in the first place. We learned the hard way. Be grateful you are learning easy. She closed the channel and turned to her crew. All right, people. Let us go home. Navigator, engage FTL drive. Aye, Captain, engaging.